just stay away from piano for a couple of days so that you will miss piano more. So that could be another great suggestion for people who can start the passion for music again. If especially if they're experiencing some burnout. So it all started with my experience maybe about a couple of years ago, when I was still pursuing the piano degree and when I was just practicing for my recitals. And a lot of reasons caused kind of like this musical trauma. For a while, for a certain amount of time, I cannot bear listening to my playing, or I don't want to practice at all, or even worse, I cannot be anywhere near to the piano. Most of the traumatic experience or in common sense, we thought, okay, maybe you just have performance anxiety. So maybe the performance or stage will be the main cause for those traumatic experience. But actually, in the survey, there are a lot of other causes or a lot of other reasons can cause those traumatic experience, musical experience. This also occurred in my survey that have you ever received any or heard about any resources or supporting system? Like 28 out of 32 responses said no, they never heard anything
Oh my goodness.
about that, yes. So don't ever give up, don't ever trust anyone who's unable to see your value, because your value does not decrease just because other people's incapability to see your value.
Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. This is an interview that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. I love getting people who have backgrounds in keyboards and piano and organ on the show because that's an instrument that I'm currently learning. And today I get to interview somebody who I got the privilege of getting to know in between seasons a little while ago. And she is pursuing a master's degree in organ performance, has a doctorate in piano, and has done a lot of research in organ musician health, organist health, as well as musical trauma. And that's something we're going to be definitely getting into today. But I'm so excited to introduce you all to Dr. Tracy Qian. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Clark. I'm so happy this conversation finally is going to happen.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm so excited to share what I found in the past with any musicians or in general everyone here. Mostly my research is based on, first of all, the musical trauma that we're about
Right.
to talk about it today, and also like the organist injury and how to protect their or our hearing health.
Absolutely, and that's a particular topic I'm really passionate about. I'm really excited to hear your findings and your thoughts about that today. But you've seen on the show before, and everybody knows, we kind of start with your story and how you kind of got into this field of injury and injury prevention. And so what's your story with your own injury?
So I know this podcast is mostly about physical injury, but the story I'm going to share today is more about the psychological injury.
Oh,
It's more
absolutely, yeah.
about, I call it musical trauma. So it all started with my experience maybe about a couple of years ago, when I was still pursuing the piano degree and when I was just practicing for my recitals. And a lot of reasons caused kind of like this musical trauma, like my physical injury and my kind of like conflicts with my maybe studio or instructors, and some maybe toxic environment. There are so many reasons caused me that for a while, for a certain amount of time, I cannot bear listening to my playing, or I don't want to practice at all, or even worse, I cannot be anywhere near to the piano for a
Mhm.
while. And I was super stressed about all of those symptoms because I don't know who I can ask help for or where I can ask for help. And I don't even know what to call it. Like this was before ChatGPT. So I
Right.
I don't know how to define it. Like if I was Googling it, I don't know what to put in the searching bar. And I don't know if I was the only one or it's anyone who's experiencing the same thing as me or even have the similar symptoms as I do. So again, I started online. I don't know why I did not turn into anyone around me in life, not any instructors or friends or colleagues or family. I just kept it into myself. And I started to Google something online like about musical trauma or something. And then I think a post from Reddit come up and it says something similar as me. Like he was experiencing some symptoms like totally burnt out, totally stressed out, and do not want to practice, do not want to listen to his music for a while. And so I started to post some like Instagram story, just ask any strangers on the internet, hey, has anyone experienced the same symptoms as I did? Um, so I received a couple of responses, said yes, they totally related what I feel right now, and they also give me some really simple or encouraging suggestions for me. And again, I did not find any helping resources. I did not find any official organizations or groups that can help me at that time. So I was super helpless at that time. And also, I could not just stop practicing because I have degree recital coming up.
Mm.
And especially as an international student, you cannot just randomly
Oh, yeah.
drop out of the school. You know, there are a lot of restrictions on the visa, etc. So there are a lot of deadlines, a lot of timeline pushing me, and I I just chose a very unhealthy way to get it over. I just chose to suck it up and really just be just let it let myself soak into those traumatic experience. And for a while, maybe I would say for a couple of months, I finally feel a little bit better. But at that time, I still did not get any help from anyone or any resources. So that made me initiate this research or this study because I was just curious. Was I the only one who was experiencing those symptoms? So I created this survey, which has 12 questions. Um, so I kind of like let my musician friends filling out or just like posted it online on Facebook groups or any other platforms because I was so curious about any other musician's experience. And I received about 32 valid responses about other musicians sharing their traumatic experiences. So speaking of this traumatic musical experience, I would say I still don't know if that's a thing, but in my study, I would say it's something kind of like caused by musical related activities and has a long-term or temporary impact on your music career. It can influence your passion, influence your confidence, or influence your injury, or it has some different impacts on your music career. So that's kind of like my story and how I started this research.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you went through that, but don't take this the wrong way. I'm so happy that you're sharing it here on the show because, like you said, this is kind of the first time we've explicitly and almost exclusively talked about the psychological injuries that we develop or can develop as musicians, or practitioners in general. And you had mentioned, so there's a lot of things I want to talk about from what you shared, but you kind of mentioned that at one point you did, as you were kind of saying that you were trying to push through it. at some point you did feel better for a couple of months. Can you kind of describe what that was like? Like, what do you mean by feel better, and what helped you to get to that point?
When I said I feel better means I feel I was more able to continue to practice, or like I was still not completely recovered from that. I still not. Um, I think some trauma like that, it probably takes a lot of efforts and years and patience to totally
Oh yeah.
recover from
Hmm.
that. So I think for that shorter amount of time, I was just trying to do something that is not particularly practice related, but still music related for me to remind myself that I still have the passion and love for music.
Mm,
And maybe just talking to strangers online, sharing each other's story, knowing that I'm not the only one, I'm not alone.
absolutely.
That definitely helped a lot. Even though there are not any supporting groups around me, but at least I know somewhere else in the world they are experiencing something similar or even worse. But they eventually they feel better, or they continue to perform again. So that gave me hope and
Oh,
confidence
absolutely.
again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy you mentioned that, because I think every music student, collegiate music student under the sun, has felt at some point that kind of like, oh man, do I really want to be practicing right now? Or do I really want to be doing, like, just that kind of burned out feeling? Because
Yep.
we do so much, especially when you get to the graduate level, right?
Hmm.
And I think one of the lessons that people can take, out there in podcast land, that they can take from your story is that, hey, you can still have a career in music and sometimes feel kind of burnt out by it,
Yeah.
you know, and still have um, and I'm going to say this, and I want to qualify it, but you can still have a healthy relationship with music, even though sometimes you feel tired of it,
Oh, of
or,
course. It's just,
know,
yeah.
and I
It's
think
it's just
sometimes,
like, yes.
go
Sorry.
ahead, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. It's just like those marriage counseling, like those married couples, they went to the counselor or they went to the therapy because they want to fall back in
Yeah.
love. They want to fall in love again. So the same thing, that I know I still have the hope and I still have the passion for music. That's what I love to do. And that never changed. It's just something else happened, kind of like blocked my passion and love for music. And I just have to find out a way to remove the blocker.
And you talked about one of those ways. You talked about finding that community of people that, hey, I've been through this, right? And um, there's, I'm sure, I don't know if you've heard of or follow Eric Whitaker on social media. He posts everything, I think every semester, every college semester, and it's just kind of like a little graphic that's just a reminder to college students, is like, right about this time of the semester, you're probably hating your instrument or wondering why you even got in this place in the first place, yada yada yada. Take a step back and just remember why you got here in the first place, why you decided to become a musician. Listen to some music that you love.
Exactly.
And I think it's really important for musicians. I don't necessarily have any data to back this up. I'm sure it's out there, but I would be willing to put money on the fact that some people that deal with physical injuries pushed through that burnout when they probably needed to give themselves a little bit of space to just rest and recharge.
Hmm.
And so there's some physical implications with burnout, and with kind of no pain, no gain, that type of push through any sort of discomfort. There is an element of that in getting better as a musician. Like, there are going to be days where you don't want to practice, that you need to do it. That's not what we're saying here. That it's that element of recharging versus procrastinating type of thing.
Yeah,
That I
exactly.
kind of take from that.
I still received one of the little suggestion from one of the online strangers that sent to me through Instagram, is just stay away from piano for a couple of days so that you will miss piano more. So
Mm.
it's just like those couples, you're always seeing each other each day, and suddenly when going on a trip, and you probably miss each other more. So that could be another great suggestion for people who can start the passion for love for music again, if especially if they're experiencing some burnout. I mean, through my survey, most of the traumatic experience or in common sense, we thought, okay, maybe you just have performance anxiety. So maybe the performance or stage will be the main cause for those traumatic experience. So all I have
Right.
to solve is just how to perform well or how to feel calm or less nervous before stage. But actually, in the survey, there are a lot of other causes or a lot of other reasons can cause those traumatic experience, musical experience. Um, so, for example, like besides performance anxiety and stage fright, which are probably the two major causes for
Right.
the traumatic experience, but there are a lot of others like toxic environment, toxic relationship with instructors. That's probably the second to the top two
Really?
of the causes. Yeah. Um, Failed performance is first one, the top one, and toxic relationship with instructor. That could include receiving negative, abusive comments from instructors, or physical injury is another big reason, a big
Mm-hmm.
cause, because some
Right.
people, they might feel so influenced about how they used to perform because of the physical injury. And some people said some very negative psychological suggestions. For example, if they're receiving some unprofessional suggestions from peers or from colleagues, that will also cause some traumatic experience. And perfectionism, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
not surprise, but not surprise for musicians because we're probably all perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
And harassments, unfair treatments, or needs that have not been met or have been ignored, body shaming, racism,
Yeah.
um, on professional colleagues, which I already mentioned that before. Yeah. So all of those are just some brief summary about the answer that I collected from the survey. But those
Yeah.
are kind of like really commonly occurring causes that I saw in the survey.
I'm so glad you went there, because that was kind of where I was wanting to go, was how your experience, how your personal experience influenced how you directed that survey. And first of all, I just want to say, on record, that if any of you guys have experienced a trauma at the hands of trusted instructor or peer, or whatever that type of trauma falls under, that there's help for you. You're not alone. There is counseling available to you, and people out there who want to see you succeed. If that's unfortunately not coming from the people who it is part of their job description to help you succeed, then
Yeah.
my heart goes out to you. And but there is help for you, and you're not alone. So Tracy, with all the data that you collected, I'm curious, like I was saying, about how the I guess negative experiences with instructors, how that was so high up on the list. Now, I don't need you or want you to go into any specifics of, for confidentiality reasons of the people who did the survey, but I am curious if there was any patterns, because here's the thing, and this is the reason why I'm asking you this question. There are a lot of band directors and private instructors that mean well, that really do mean well, but sometimes they don't necessarily know how to make what comes out of their mouth be the most effective thing for their student to hear, right? And maybe that sometimes is perceived as trauma, or as a as a negative experience or negative. It's negatively interpreted by the student. You
Mm-hmm.
understand what I'm saying? And so,
Yeah.
So, were there any sort of common threads in people who expressed that they had experienced that musical trauma in that way? And you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, I did not find any repeated pattern, but there are some answers that saying, for example, they were pushed to do something that they are not prepared to do, or they're getting this unwanted expectations from someone they trust, like their instructors or their family, or they were even pushed to finish a recital with the injury. Um, Something, those are the answers that really jump on the top of my mind.
Yeah.
But I think in general, like their instructors probably like pushed them a little bit. I don't. This part you can edit out. I'm not sure if I answer
I'm
your
listening to every
questions.
word. I'm listening to
Okay.
every word. It's interesting you mentioned the recital thing with injury because I have heard
Mhm.
that, and I don't think it's uncommon. One of the
Yeah.
other things I wanted to ask you about was, and we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. This is a really interesting statistic from your study. 53.3% of participants, at least at the point of data collection, in your study said that they received no support through their traumatic experience. I think the people who did said it was around 20 or 30%, maybe, somewhere in there. So obviously each, situation is different, but I'm curious on what your thoughts are as to why that is. Why are over half not seeking help?
I think maybe first of the reason it just, as me, I did not ask for any help. I did not reach out to any help because probably I still have the stigma about, showing the vulnerability of a musicians to any other people around me. I just, I had this ego that I just want to show what I can do, not showing what I cannot do. So there's still some stigma about musicians not talking about that because they thought that's a shame or that's something that they were too embarrassed to talk about it. Probably that's the first reason. And second reason is probably there are not enough resources or supporting groups out there. Like when it occurred to me, I don't know who to ask help for. I don't know if there's a scene specifically for musicians because, well, we have therapy, we have performance coach, but they can only solve some certain problems, and they're not specifically for musical trauma that caused by some problems besides performance. So I would say two major reasons is, first of all, musicians or the whole music industry still have the stigma about talking some controversial topic like that. And second is, this also occurred in my survey, that have you ever received any or heard about any resources or supporting system? And I believe like 28 out of 32 responses that no, they'd never heard anything
Oh my goodness.
about that. Yes.
And is that specifically like, are you asking about, have you heard anything from your universities or just in general?
In general, because I asked, have you heard about any resources, like including books or platforms or organizations or online websites, stuff like
Sure.
that. And, as I said, 28 out of 32.
28
said
out of
no to-
32.
Yeah.
Wow. And has that number gone up or down since? Because I know there's been a few more participants since then in the survey.
I believe not, because that survey kind of closed for a while.
Oh, okay.
So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Wow. That's eye-opening. That's eye-opening.
Yeah.
And you know what? I did read a study recently, and I shared this with my audience recently, that as far as like the physical research behind like musicians' health, physical health goes, that has gone up a lot in the last 30 plus years, especially out of Australia. Australia is a big proponent for it. Shout out to Dr. Ackerman. But what was interesting in this study, and it's about 10 years old, that even though the amount of research has gone up, the rate of injury has stayed the same or also gone up. So it's kind of like a disproportionate, like, are we really applying what we learn type of thing? And and it's so, I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why I do this show is because it's pointing people to the resources that they need. And it's humbly, submitting it as a resource for people in need of those resources.
Yeah, exactly. So I totally noticed there are more wellness workshop in any big conferences, which is great. But I would say most of those workshops, they're more focusing on how to take care of musicians, like how to have a healthy practice pattern, how to eat healthy, sleep well, something like that. But so far, I still did not see any workshop just specifically to focus on the psychological side or psychological injury of musicians, especially like those musical trauma. They are caused by music-related activities. They are caused by music in some certain way. Not just caused by music, but, music-related. So I was hoping to see more workshops focusing on that part for performers or instructors, for students, no matter who you are.
Hey guys, I just want to interrupt the show real quick and just tell you about something I've been working on for a long time that I'm so excited to share with you. Like I've said in the past, you have the potential to make your injury become a benefit to you, an asset to you. But at the same time, I know the feeling of being lost, not knowing who to turn to, where to go, what resources to use, all sorts of things, and also how to reframe the situation, the mental skills that's needed to be able to do that. And so if you are one of those people looking for that resource, that help, that coaching, I want to tell you about something I've been working on, and that is Musician Unchained. Musician Unchained is now the newest coaching platform for musicians going through injury. It is intended to help you view your situation in a way that benefits you and make the changes in your life that you need to become the best version of yourself because of your injury. Your injury being the impetus for that change. I would love to be able to help you in any way that I can, even if that means sending you somewhere else to someone who can better help you. And so if you are interested in working together one-on-one, visit our website, musicianunchained.com/let's hang for more details. All right, let's get back to the show.
Yep.
Yeah, and you touched on a really important point that I've heard a lot of people express, including myself at some point. In that, they go to therapists and they go to performance coaches, more so with therapists and like on the physical side, like physicians or physiotherapists, and they just haven't had a lot of clinical experience with musicians because for the last however many years, musicians have just been taught to kind of put all their problems underneath the rug and just keep playing, and so there's really not a lot of there's only a handful of people out in the world. It's growing. The number's getting bigger, thankfully, that have experience working with musicians and rehabilitation, whether it be physical or psychological. Do you think that knowing what you know now, with all the research you've done, looking back on your injury, how would you have handled the rehabilitation part of it differently?
So first of all, right now I would definitely be so much more aware of the environment that I'm in. I will be more aware of how I process things, how I feel about things. If I feel not right, or if I feel burnt out, or if I sense that this is not the correct, healthy, organic environment for me, I would be more knowledgeable and smart to protect myself from those situations so that those symptoms will not or occur back less frequently, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also for me, not just as a performer, I'm also as an instructor, like knowing all that happened to me can definitely help me to understand my students more. So I can be more aware of what I said, what I've done can have a totally temporary or permanent impact on them. So I would pay more attention on what I said, what I've done, or if any students has similar symptoms as I did. At least I've been there, so I can share a lot of my recovery experience with them. So I think I can be a more helpful resources for my students now compared to that time I was just totally experiencing that by myself.
Totally. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, especially the thing about the students, because I mean, one of the our greatest teachers are our experiences, right?
Hmm.
And I think there's a phrase out there that I heard growing up is like, a wise person learns from their own experiences. A super wise person learns from others' experiences, and so
Hmm.
hopefully there's that kind of relationship going on with our students and with all the teachers out there in the audience, that they are not only, because here's my thing. I've said this a lot recently, but I think that a lot of people in our field, musicians, they don't really prioritize these things until they are going through an injury themselves, right? And I think that is honestly a wasted opportunity, or it's looking
Hmm.
for trouble, because not only have these things proven to like keep our health in check, but they also improve our performance, our
Hmm.
performing capabilities. And the more we kind of kick these things to the side, I think we're just doing ourselves and our students a disservice. And I'm going on the record saying that, because we don't need to only learn from our own experiences. We can learn from other people's experiences and apply what they've learned in our own lives.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's how a lot of really successful people have been successful, is because they just take what they learn from others and they just apply it to themselves.
Yeah.
So anyway, um, well, I really enjoyed this part of the conversation. I kind of want to transition to your work with organists specifically.
Sure.
The thing that I have come to know very acutely recently is that hearing health is really critically important, and musicians are at a higher risk than a lot of other occupations for hearing damage and hearing injuries. I'm curious on how that specifically got started for you, like that, wanting to research that specifically.
Sure. Yeah. So, my previous instrument was piano, and I probably injured myself in any possible ways
Mm,
because of poor practice gestures or wrong way or poor techniques. A lot of reasons. So when I was transitioning from piano to organ, the first thing I just want to protect myself from injuring more, especially after I noticed that there are so many differences between piano and organ playing
mm,
because of the uniqueness of both instruments.
right.
Especially, when you're playing organ, when you're playing a different instruments, it just engage different parts of your body and require a different approach to to the instruments. So my first instinct is just I want to prevent from getting injured more, and I want to protect myself, um, both physical injury and protecting my hearing. I think I mentioned this to you off camera that after listening to one of her episodes, I literally just get the book,
Oh
Play
yeah,
Less
yeah,
Hurt,
yeah.
right
From Janet
after I
Janet
finished.
Horvath. Yeah.
Yes, yes, from Dr. Qian Horrors. So I literally just got the book right after I finished that episode, and because I heard she was talking about this hearing health in her book, and so I checked out that chapter about hearing health. Um, she talked a lot about the hearing health for many instruments, but she did not mention anything about organs. So that kind of got my curiosity because, organ is literally like a chamber orchestra, and it also depends on the size of the organ and the acoustic environment, because this is the uniqueness of the instruments, is because no any organs in the world, they are the same. Every organ is unique. And so that will influence um, a lot of aspects. Like, for example, every organ has different console height and bench height. Luckily, now we have an adjustable bench, because in the past, this instrument was not even for a woman. So there's no adjustable bench. So for those who are not quite familiar with organs, I would like to introduce or explain more about why there are so many flexible elements that can cause potential risk for people, for
please do.
organists to get injured. As I said before, or every organ is unique. That means you can never totally get used to any other organ by having a perfect sitting positions. For example, for me, I'm 5'3" tall. And when I'm sitting comfortable on the bench with an adjustable bench that my feet can totally reach to the foot pedal, sometimes my menu, the menu could be too high for me, especially the organ has multiple menus. So the position when I play on the first menu is different from the position that I play on the third menu, which I still have to reach. And as I said, every organ is different, and I'm pretty sure every organist must have been practicing at least a couple of organs in their life, or a couple of organs in a day.
Right.
It depends on where you are or what you do. So it's hard to teach your body to get used to one particular height or sitting gestures forever. So as I said before, it depends on how tall you are, how comfortable you sit. Sometimes my feet might feel comfortable, but my hands, I might have to hand my hands for a couple of hours. Depends on the repertoire I play, or depends on which menu I need to play. And sometimes if my menu height is okay for me, I cannot reach to the foot pedal. So there are so many elements that can cause the different sitting gestures, which can lead to some discomfort. That's one of the reasons, is because of the uniqueness of the organ. And another reason is, each organ is different. So their organ box is different. And it also depends on the size of the organ. Some organs literally just scream at you.
Yeah.
Some organs might be really soft. Also depends on where the organ is. In the concert hall or at church with carpet or with a hard floor, it all will influence the acoustic effect of the organ. So, it really, the decibel levels or the sound level you receive, it really differed from organ to organ.
One of the things I did want to bring up to you, that point out that you said, was that, each organ is different. And I don't know if many instrumentalists can relate to that. I mean, when we go from as a trumpet player, every trumpet is different, sure. But those are very small differences compared to an organ where you're having to literally adjust macro level, big level type of adjustments, right?
Yeah.
With trumpet, I'm talking about like changing a mouthpiece for a different type of setting, or, I don't know. I'm not going to try and embarrass myself trying to talk about other instruments, but it's interesting that organ is that variable. There's that much variety to it. What helps organists to stay healthy when they are switching from organ to organ?
You mean for physical injury side or hearing health side?
You can touch on physical a little bit, but then let's hear about the hearing. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the show. I just wanted to jump in here real quick and tell you about something that I'm really, really excited about. For a while now, I have wanted to create an even more effective resource than just the podcast that injured musicians can go to receive the support that they need. And recently I did just that. So write this down. Trust the Process Podcast Injured Musician Support Group. I know it's a long title. We're still working on that part. But this is a place where people can go now, injured musicians and even musicians who have gone through injury in the past, and people that help musicians go through injury, where they can go to receive the support that they need, whether that be ask questions, share their victories, share their frustrations, and overall just receive the community and the support that they need in a very proactive, intentional way. And so I just ask that you guys support these injured musicians by sharing this group with them, that they can receive the support that they need. Okay, enjoy the rest of the show.
So I also did a research on organist physical injury, which I actually got about
I did
60.
See that.
Yeah, which I also got about 62 valid responses. Literally just, again, also out of my curiosity that as a newborn organist, I want to know what other organists are experiencing, what kind of physical injuries. So that can be a great prevention for me. So most of their physical injuries depends on their sitting gestures. So most of them are about shoulders and neck and lower back, which can be a sin because of we engage so much about our lower bodies. So it requires a lot of hardcore strength, and also about some major common issues like any keyboard players, like joints or wrist, something like that. So and also, as I said, organ is different from each organ. Some organ has really heavy key weight because of the tracker. So not every organ has the same key weight. That's also something probably non-organist is not familiar with. So I think most of the injuries are based on their poor sitting gestures or poor techniques because of the frequently changing key weight or different touch on each organ.
So what are some prevention techniques that for physical injury that organists can implement to stay healthy?
So I also collected that from the survey because I want to know what are their preventions. So the most common answers I received are definitely like stretch more. I believe that can be applied to any other instruments as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like you stretch more, not necessarily work out, but do some warm up stretch or before and after the practice, and do some really healthy warm up, especially if you're playing on a really heavy tracker organ. That can be helpful. And some other resources that organists get help is definitely physical therapy, and stretch more. That are the top two answers that I got from my survey. And Alexander technique, temperament training. Yeah. And change gestures, change technique, acupuncture, medication, stuff like that. So definitely stretch.
Well, I was just going to say, it's really getting involved in knowing what your body's doing, you know? Stretching helps us with our awareness of our body. Alexander technique really does that. And the more I feel like we understand about what our body's doing when we are playing, that is going to be one of our biggest assets for longevity in our career, you know? I just, that's how I personally feel that we all need to view our careers, is we want to be having the longest career we can. I mean, for most people, maybe they just want to do it for a little bit and then move on, which is fine. But for those who want to be career musicians, that's how they have to view it. And these things like Alexander technique or a 3 to 5 minute stretch before you start practicing, those are investments you are making in the longevity of your career, right?
Mhm.
Would you agree? I mean, that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, basically, exactly just like you summarized, in order to have a long-term music career, we have to do a lot of preparations, not just jump on the bench and start a practice. Definitely stretch, because I have a over 60-year-old studio mate organ student. He already almost finished his master degree, and
Mm,
he can still had 4 or 5 hours practice, organ practice every day. And I asked him, "What's your secret? Like, you're not as young as us, and you can still practice 4 or 5 hours a day." And he told me his secret was just doing those body stretch, a couple of times a day, and
there you go.
not just for practice, but in general. So I think that definitely helped. And also warm up before you practice on some really heavy tracker organ, and try the Alexander technique or any top man training. Those can definitely be helpful.
Awesome. Well, so I want to definitely get to hearing health before we run out of
Yeah.
time. So you had mentioned that you had done some specific research on hearing health for organists, and Janet Horvath, she went into some detail about kind of what are kind of the decibel levels that we need to watch out for musicians, like how many decibels a flute versus a what was another piano, a fortissimo
Yeah.
piano, I remember was one she specifically mentioned. What are some
Yeah.
of the ones that like one of the things that organists need to watch out for, like how loud does an organ really get, and how long does it take for that to become unhealthy for us?
Yeah. So basically, about the decibel level and their exposure time, I did not make those rules. All of
Right.
those like spectrum you can find on different platforms like WHO or National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health
Right.
or Occupational Safety and Health Administrations. So all of those organizations, they have kind of a little bit different rules about decibel levels and their exposure times. For example, let's just use National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health as an example. So they said anything under 85 decibels is healthy. So you're
Mm-hmm.
safe under 85 decibels every day. But anything above 85 decibels, you have to be really patient, because every 3 decibels increased, that means the sound level is twice louder. That means your exposure time needs to be cut in half. For example, 88 decibels, which is 3 decibels higher than 85 decibels. Um, if you're 85 decibels, your exposure time is 8 hours a day, according to National Institute for Occupational
Sure.
Safety and Health. That's a long title.
It's a long time.
But yeah, but for 88 decibels, your exposure time needs to be cut in half, which is 4 hours. So there's some common sense for hearing is the decibel you're receiving is accumulation. It's just like the calories you take in every day. So maybe your practice session for that 2 hours on the organ is in a safe range of your exposure time. But remember, you still have other activities in your life that can still
Be
uh,
loud, yeah.
be loud. So you have to really be smart about calculating how much decibels and how long you're exposed to that, because our hearing damaged is painless and gradually, which probably people will not be paying attention to unless they had some symptoms or they started to feel some pain. But a lot of hearing damage, they're painless and gradually. You probably did not even notice that your hearing has already been damaged because they're painless.
Right.
So that means we had to really, really be smart about like control how loud and how long we're exposed every single day.
And
Um,
how loud does an organ get?
that's a good question, because that also depends. I did some I did collect some data, but I think for organs, it's not just like you turn it on and it's only one volume for one
Right,
organ.
right.
Organ has so many different stops. Some stops they're fine, but if you just pour the full organ, it depends on the size of organ, depends on where you are. Some organs can as loud as 120 decibels.
Mm. And how
Yeah.
long is our exposure for that, according
Well,
to
you
that?
have to do
I
some
don't.
math.
Yeah, it's a little bit of math. I don't want to say a specific number without having the sheet in front of me, but I think it's less than a minute. Am I correct on that?
Yes. Here it is. Yes. So if anything above 115 decibels, your exposure time needs to be less than 30 seconds. So, that means if someone's playing on some organs like as loud as 120 decibels, hearing protection is a must-have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's I would say hopefully before then as well. Is that cumulative? Is that like 30 seconds at a time, or is it like you said where it's like
Accumulation. So
like even if it's like just a 3-second whole note right here versus
yeah.
and then I try and practice it again and I hold it for 15 seconds, then I've now listened to it for 18 seconds out of that 30-second time limit. That's how we're supposed to be thinking about it, right?
I think so, because all the exposure times they should be an accumulations.
Right. Okay.
So like between your exposure time, you have to have some rest if the decibel level is really loud. It's really high.
Yeah. And there's not only and listeners of the show, especially of that episode with Janet, will know that there's not only just hearing loss, it's painless. There's painful hearing loss.
Yes,
or hearing damage,
exactly.
excuse me, through hyperacusis and things like reactive tinnitus and noxiacusis. These things are debilitating. There's nothing that could destroy your career and the longevity of your career, like we were saying, more than hyperacusis.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So
that.
whatever you just described is totally true. Some of the damage they can be really painful, but also there are different definitions about hearing loss. For example, like if it's hard for you to hear some conversations while some sound going on in the background, something like that, that can also be some symptoms of your hearing got damaged. Or sometimes it's hard for you to hear the pitch correctly or hear the multiple pitches at the same time. Or sometimes it's hard for you to determine where is this sound is coming from. That can also be a symptom of your hearing got damaged. So there are a lot of hearing damaged symptoms that is not our common sense. So I think this study also really important for not just organists, but in general musicians to be aware of if they already get some damage already, or should any actions be taken at this moment.
Yeah. Well, thank you for going into that. The last thing I want to ask you about this before we kind of move towards a close. Some people may listen to all that and say, but I still need to practice all that stuff.
Yeah, so I have a couple of suggestions for musicians general, and I do also have some practice tips specifically for organists.
Perfect.
So first of all, for musicians, the first step is to self-checking. So as I said, there are so many symptoms. Some of them are painless, some of them are painful. Some of them it's easy to notice. Some of them we didn't even know they're symptoms of hearing damage. So like really learn how to self-check in is the first step. And this can also be offered in your show note. Is actually there are some noise meter calculator can help you to count how many decibels your ear are exposed. Are they in the healthy range every day, or is already over the range? So there are some tools like that. I would like to share that with you, and then you can put that in the show note.
Thank you.
So first of all, self-checking, and second, is there are a lot of apps for decibel monitor or for decibel measurement, because musicians, as I said, besides practice, rehearsal, teaching, we still have a life. There are many other activities in our life can sort of like can also be bad for our hearing. So there are some apps can help you to monitor. So if you set up your safe decibel level, and once your, for example, like your earbuds volume is over the safe volume, it can give you a reminder, something like that. And
Right.
if you're, I can also be happy to sharing those apps for both
Absolutely.
iOS
Thank you.
system and Android system. And for example, if you happen to not take any measurement tool with you, there are some self-test decibel level ways. For example, as I said, 85 decibels is kind of like a safety range for your hearing. So anything above 85, that will require you to raise your voice to be heard by someone 3 feet away. So if you don't have your phone or any apps with you or your decibel measurement with you, this can be a really easy way to test if you are in a safe hearing range. Or anything is 95 decibel or above, it's likely that you have to shout to be heard by someone 3 feet away. So
if you're at a party and you're talking, real close to somebody and you have to shout, then you're already in the danger zone, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Interesting.
And the third way is definitely to wear hearing protection. I think Dr. Janet Horwath,
Horvath?
yeah, she also talked about this hearing protection a lot in her book, especially in that chapter about hearing health. So there are a lot of earbuds or headphones just for musicians, because for regular earbuds, they normally will only cut those high frequencies. So that means you will have to sacrifice your listening quality if you're wearing those hearing protection to practice. But there are some really affordable earbuds just for musicians, because they cut decibels in like evenly, not just the high frequencies. And I can also share those in the show note if you want.
Yeah.
And the fourth is those practice tips just for organist. Is first of all, you can always practice soft stops when you're studying the notes. So for organs, you're very flexible to choose what stops you want to hear, especially if you're just learning the piece. You don't have to pull the full organ, or you don't have to like make it just to practice on some soft stops, like 8 flute stops, something like that. And also you can practice on dead menus. That means you don't have to turn the organ on, but you can still practice on the menus and pedal. So those are probably just for muscle memories. And also alternate your practice repertoire. So you don't have to always practice those loud repertoire or at one day or at this 1 hour. Give yourself some time, especially give your ear some time to take a break. So you can practice soft, loud, or just practice loud repertoire every other day. And also you can measure the decibels at the peak spots. For example, when I'm practicing now, or if I'm registering a new piece, I would always put decibel measurement on the stand so that I can be aware of, okay, this part is above 90 decibels. This part, they're safe. This part is above like 88 decibels, so that I can be aware of where I should be wearing the hearing protection, or where I should be cut my exposure time on those spots. And also, the next way is I also learned from that book, Play Less Heard, is you can hum through the loud loud sound, because when you're humming, I think some muscles in your ear, they kind of just blocked your ear tunnel in a way so that it can sort of like stop the loud sound going through your ear tunnel,
interesting.
something like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
So if anyone's interested in that, you're always welcome to check out that book.
Everybody should get that
chapter
book.
in that book. Yes, exactly. And also the just practice session with rehearsal session. So try not to, schedule your 2-hour organ practice with another brass rehearsal session together or on the same day. And always be aware of the menu and organ structures. As I said at the beginning, every organ is unique, and it differs in different venues, acoustic environments. So really be smart about where you are and how you practice. I think that can be helpful for protecting your hearing health.
Awesome. Well, that was a gold mine of information. Tracy, thank you so much for sharing that, because you're the first organist that we've had on the show, and you're only the second person who's talked about hearing health on the show, which is going to change next season. I can guarantee you that. Hearing health would be a big topic. Well, thank you so much for being willing to come on the show, Tracy, and share your story and the hard work and the research that you've done. I think you had mentioned that you've seen the show, and before, so you probably know where I'm going with this at the end.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of questions that I ask all of my guests, and the first one is, if somebody were to come to you, and it doesn't matter what type of instrument that they play, and they said, "Hey, I'm going through an injury," what advice could you give that person? They're just looking for any advice that you can give them.
I would say definitely, first of all, you're not alone. That definitely helped a lot already. And second, I would try to find some supporting groups or supporting systems for them like this. This is a really great supporting group for all the musicians who are sharing their stories. So I would definitely encourage them to, listen to those stories and, just find their own way to no matter treat or heal their physical or psychological injuries. Just, be patient. There are always good people and good things out there, and you're not alone. You have us, and will be more resources coming out, I'm pretty sure, in the future. So yeah, just be positive, be patient, and you're not alone.
Awesome. I second that. You are not alone out there, everybody. The last question I actually want to kind of split into two parts. So I call it my time travel question. If you could go back to the time of your injury and you had the superpower to either take away your injury experience or leave it there and let yourself go through everything that you've gone through, which would you choose?
I would totally leave the injury there. I would totally want it to go through the injury by myself, because I feel like after going through all of those hard times, especially those traumatic experience, after tons of inner work that I worked on myself, after tons of or hours of the patients that I got for myself, after all of that, I think the confidence is just from myself, and it comes from my experience, my patience, the time. So the confidence is literally solid inside me, and no one can take that confidence away from me. And I think that's probably the power of like going through all of this hard time, no matter physical or psychological, is you whatever didn't kill you just make you stronger. That sounds cheesy,
Kelly Clarkson
but that is true.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And well, first of all, thank you for saying that. I think that was just beautiful. you may have the same answer to this question as the one you just gave, but I'm curious if you also, when you're back there time traveling, if you had a message for Tracy back then. Tracy now is talking to Tracy back then. What would you tell her?
Definitely, first of all, you are not alone. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing that survey, because you're not the only one who's suffering all of that. And as I said before, there are still good things, good people out there, and you still will have those passion for music. You will still have them back. So don't ever give up. Don't ever trust anyone who's unable to see your value, because your value does not decrease just because other people's incapability to see your value. That's the old saying, but I think that's really
So
talking
true.
to me. Yeah. So always have faith in you, because you will be the only person who can help you out or save yourself from getting stronger and getting powerful again. So don't give up, have faith in you, and just be yourself.
Amen. Amen to that. That's a beautiful way to wrap things up. Thank you so much, Tracy, for your time and for sharing everything you shared today. And to everybody out there in podcast land, well, first of all, before I close up, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
I'm on some social medias like Instagram. You can also share that in the show note. And also, if anyone who wants to join in this musical trauma group, I do created this group on Facebook, so
Great.
I can also share that in the with you, so you can share that in the show note. So that is basically the same thing. That's also probably the reason why I started to notice the work, or I reached out to you, because I just noticed both of us are sort of creating this safe environment or safe space for people whomever needs to share or whomever needs to feel safe or comfortable. So yeah, we're kind of doing the same thing.
Yes, we are. We're a team. So thank you for all you're doing for this community, Tracy. It's very valued, and that data is going to break some ground, I think, in this field. I really do. I really believe that work that you've done will carry a lot of weight here going forward in our community. So everybody out there in podcast land, thanks for joining us today on another episode of Trust the Process. If you want to reach out to Tracy, just check out the show notes. Her contact information will be on there. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can send me a text with the link in the show notes, although I won't be able to respond to that. But you can always send me an email or reach out to me on social media. If you want to explore a coaching relationship between us through Musician Unchained, that's also available to you. And if you felt so inspired to contribute to this mission that we're doing, that's also available to you. And the last thing I just ask is that you keep up with what's going on with the podcast and join our newsletter. And there's a lot of different opportunities and books and things like that I give to you as part of that. So to everybody out there, keep on keeping on and keep trusting the process. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of Trust the Process, the official podcast of Musician Unchained, the newest coaching program dedicated to helping musicians navigate and overcome injury. But before you go, I have a few quick ways you can stay connected and support our growing community. First of all, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a text with the link below and share your thoughts, questions, or just say hi. You can also check the show out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We also would love to see you in our Facebook support group, Trust the Process Podcast Injured Musician Support Group. If you found value in today's episode, consider making a donation to support our mission of empowering musicians worldwide. Every contribution helps us create more content and resources for you. So visit link number 2 below to support the mission. If you decide to donate, I'll send you my newest resource, the Injured Musician Toolkit, which is an ebook designed to give you tools to help you get through your injury. Subscribe to our newsletter to get exclusive insights, tips, sneak previews of episodes, and announcements straight to your inbox. Act now and I will send you a free gift. So sign up at www.musicianunchained.com/newsletter. And if you or someone you know would like to go deeper with me in the topics of injury and mindset, head over back to musicianunchained.com and check out the Let's Hang tab. As always, I want to thank Daniel Baldwin, my audio engineer, and my sister Dana Lovell for her help with the promotional materials. There is no podcast without them. But before I go, I want to tell you how much I deeply appreciate your time and support. You are not alone on this journey. There are musicians and educators out there who need this resource, and we need to get it to them. Together, we are breaking the chain of old habits and thought patterns that don't serve us anymore, and unchaining the potential within ourselves to face each challenge with strength and resilience. So, as I always say, keep on keeping on and keep trusting the process. Until next time.